These two ports are important to all of America, not just to the West Coast, not just to the Los Angeles, Long Beach metropolitan area. What happens at these two ports is critical to the national economy. I've been greatly engaged in this issue that is the subject of this hearing, and want to understand a number of items.
This is an issue of great importance around the country. I represent New York City, which has a major port, and we also have facing a 70% expansion of trucking in the next 10 years. We must have an effective environmental program in place, like at the Port of Los Angeles, if we're to accommodate an increase in goods movement without adversely affecting our environment.
When the LA Clean Truck program started, we were hoping that finally we would be recognized as an employee. But after the American Trucking Association attacked the program, we were forced to pay for the new clean trucks and their maintenance. After working over 50 hours that week, I took only $96 because the company takes away my money to pay for the truck.
We're just frankly concerned that we're setting up a system that's going to eventually fail because the independent owner-operators, without the company buying the trucks, are not going to be able to buy the trucks on their own. There's a reason why our trucks were 12 years old when we started this program. It's not because the drivers didn't want to have new trucks, it's because the drivers couldn't afford new trucks.
Mr. Chairman, why are the laws set up so families like mine are forced by our bosses to pay for cleaning up the air? Poor drivers are proud of the work we do, but we are suffering. I lost my house, and my daughters have cut hours at college to work more and pitch in at home. On behalf of my fellow truck drivers and their families, I ask you to please fix the laws so that poor truck companies can be finally held responsible for their trucks and their workers.
From the environmentalist perspective, the question for us is not whether some fraction of the port's clean truck program can result in some short-term gains. What we're really interested in is having the Port of LA being able to implement their full program so that long-term gains can be achieved.
The ATA has robbed other ports of the right to solve pollution problems as well. Oakland has delayed life-saving environmental rules, and drivers are going bankrupt paying for retrofits.
If you look at a study that was done by a group called Port Jobs out of Seattle, where the average short-haul trucker at the Port of Seattle drove an 11-year-old truck, worked 11 hours a day, earned $31,000 a year, and that was before the downturn in the economy, and with diesel prices also doubling. These folks are not making a lot of money to be able to finance finance on their own, much less a $100,000 truck.
Are you prepared to say that all your drivers are making at least minimum wage, unlike the testimony of what we heard today?
I've not analyzed the minimum wage issue. If they're available and if they don't turn it down, again, they're independent businessmen.
If we're subsidizing and people are not even making minimum wage, that puts us in a jeopardized position. We need to establish something nationwide that will protect our environment, enable companies to make money, and ensure that truckers, the people who are actually driving their trucks, are not at a disadvantaged point as well.
Okay. Everything, seems to me conspires against the people actually driving the rigs. He's sitting at the gate for an hour to get in. Oh, I just lost an hour there. He gets to pick up the load. He waits to pick up the load. Oh, I lost time there. He gets, he gets a bad chassis and he's going over to here to get the chassis fixed. God, he had to spend 2 hours getting the chassis fixed. Then he drove out to the warehouse. It's now, 5 hours, 6 hours later. I paid him for 6 hours, and he's dropping off one load at one warehouse, and they happen to have a 2-hour wait. So we're now up to 6 to 8 hours. And, he's delivered one load. I mean, we have an incredibly inefficient system, it seems, here. Now, you can disagree with the way LA wanted to make it more rational, but the point is this system's got to get better. I mean, it really does. But if they were employees, maybe those companies would then go to the Port of LA and say, hey, we're tired of this.
The second key failure in the drayage market is the explosion in the sham lease purchase agreements. And we do agree this is a rent-to-own scheme, and it is sharecropping or involuntary servitude, and it really makes the payday loan industry look like ethical in comparison.
These aren't lease agreements. These are people that are saying, as a condition of employment, you must rent the truck from us. And then they fully control the movement of that truck, the movement of the driver. In fact, many of the leases contain work rules that would apply to an employee, not to an independent contractor. It's a total sham.
When asked, independent operators said they prefer to work for themselves. Mr. Chairman, I asked that a letter signed by 345 independent business owners be included in the record.
We will be happy to enter that in the record. I've also been given another petition signed by 541 people who claim the letter was coerced. So therefore, we'll put both in the record, and someday we'll figure it all out. Mr. Covarrubias, do you know among your associates and colleagues anybody who ever successfully completed a lease-to-own agreement?
No.
Mr. Rakovitz?
Personally, I know absolutely nobody.
Mr. Potter?
I know of none.
The majority of leases, we're told, explicitly prohibit drivers from using the leased truck to haul for more than one company. Is that true?
That is true.
If that is true, isn't this serfdom? You're an independent operator, but you can only work for one company. How are you in any sense an independent operator?
This is an important point because under the federal leasing rules, a motor carrier has to have exclusive use and possession and control of a truck during the period of the lease. That is designed to protect the public, to protect everyone.
So under the law, I just want to get that straight. Under the law, the company has to have exclusive control of the truck during the period of the lease?
That is correct.
So if I sign a lease for 5 years, I can only work for that company for 5 years?
You can break the lease and then you can go work for another company.
Under the arrangement they're talking about, they're renting the truck to the driver. If he wants to break the release, he loses the truck. He has no truck in which to go to work for somebody else. He's captive. This isn't a new
Excuse me a second. Mr. Diggs, is that true? If he breaks the lease, he loses the truck?
No, not to my knowledge, it's not.
Mr. Potter?
Mr. Nadler, can I add something?
Mr.
Yeah. I've been in this business for 20 years, and they control where to go, when, how much they're going to pay you, what kind of load you're going to take, what time you're going to start, and when you're going to finish. And if you break the lease, yes, they take the truck.
If you break the lease, they take the truck.
Yes.
And Mr. Diggs is unaware of that, but Mr. Covarrubias is aware of that. Mr. Potter, you're aware of that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Mr. Diggs is aware of that.
We will perhaps be using our subpoena power in this case in order to understand these agreements better if we don't get cooperation. I've already spoken to Chairman Miller of Education and Labor, and it's my inclination, and I'll talk to Chairman Oberstar, that we put our two investigation and oversight staffs together. We delve into these questions more as relates to these relationships, these leases, and also we'll be looking at the environmental issues. But I really believe this is not the last time this committee is going to be dealing with this issue.
I'm currently drafting legislation to amend the federal motor carrier statute so that ports can enact and enforce clean truck programs similar to that of the Port of Los Angeles if they choose to do so. I recently sent a letter to the committee signed by 78 other members of the House requesting support for such an amendment.
Federal legislation is needed not just to protect Los Angeles' program, but to protect Long Beach's program and the recent program adopted by the Port of New York and New Jersey. Federal legislation would really pave the way for local authorities to address the ill effects of port drayage. Thank you.